Well, everyone seemed to like my last little tale well enough that I've decided to continue with another one this week. I may do one or two more short ones before Halloween, but we'll see. Today's is a piece of English folklore called Mr. Fox. And oddly enough, it seems like most of the female leads in these stories are named Mary, but we'll get to that another time. Once there was a young lady named Lady Mary who had two brothers. One summer, all three went out to a country cottage of theirs which they hadn't visited before, and they all threw a party for the visiting family. Well, among the other gentry in the neighborhood who came out to see them was a Mr. Fox, a bachelor with whom they, particularly the young lady, were very much pleased. He often used to dine with them, and frequently visited Lady Mary, and invited her to come to see his house, which she always politely declined, as her and her brothers were often busy. But they spent more and more time out at this cottage, and got to know Mr. Fox more and more, and trust him more and more. One day that Mary's brothers were absent elsewhere and she had nothing better to do, she determined to go out and accordingly set out on her own. She decided she would finally visit Mr. Fox at his home. When she arrived, she knocked at the door and no one answered. She tried to look in the windows, but the house was very dark within, and just as she was about to open the door, she noticed a carving above the lintel that said, "Be bold, be bold." And she thought that was a very strange inscription. It's not very inviting, but Mr. Fox had told her to visit any time, so she let herself in. Well, inside it was indeed very dark, but there was enough light coming in the windows from outside that she could see where she was going. And it was a beautiful house within, very richly furnished, beautiful silver place settings on the table, immaculately clean, just a lovely place. And then she decided she wanted to see the upstairs. And just as she was about to climb the stairs, there was another carving above the stairs that read, be bold, but not too bold." Well, that's certainly not welcoming at all, she thought to herself. But she continued up the stairs to see if the upstairs was as grand as the entrance. And one by one she opened the various rooms, and they were indeed richly furnished and beautiful, until she reached a door at the end of the hall. Now, whereas all of the other doors in the house were fine light ash wood, this one was a dark oak stained nearly black. And there was another carving in the lintel above this door that read, be bold, but not too bold, lest that your heart's blood should run cold." And this caused Mary to stop a moment and think, should she be bold and enter this door, or should she turn her back and leave? Because she certainly, despite being invited, did not feel welcome anymore. But eventually her curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the door. And when she entered an empty white room that contained 3 large tubs. And the first tub was filled with what looked like human blood. And the second was filled with human bones. And the third with what looked to be human skin and hair. And Mary turned and she ran out of that room, slamming the door behind her, and started to race down the stairs and was just about to leave through the front when she saw Mr. Fox come striding across the clearing, dragging a young woman by the wrist. Well, she certainly couldn't get out through the front, and she didn't remember seeing a back exit. So before she could think of what to do, she hid herself in a little hollow under the stairs in shadow and hoped that Mr. Fox wouldn't see her. Well, Mr. Fox, he came striding right into there, dragging this young woman by the hair through the living room and started up the stairs. And this poor girl was screaming her head off, and she's struggling and reached out her right hand and grabbed the banister. And Mr. Fox, he didn't even miss a step. He drew his sword and hacked that hand off at the wrist. And that wrist, that hand, fell into Mary's lap. There was a beautiful gold ring on that hand. Well, he dragged the girl the rest of the way up the stairs and down the hall, and Mary held perfectly still until he was down. She heard that black door creak open, and as soon as she heard it close again, she gathered that hand up in her apron and she bolted from that house straight back to her brother's. And she told her brothers of everything that had happened. And they pretended for a while that they'd heard nothing. A few days later, Mr. Fox came to dine with them as usual. And after all the guests had left, Lady Mary said, "I had a dream about you, Mr. Fox." And Mr. Fox said, "A dream about me? Oh, please do tell." "Well, Mr. Fox, I remembered that you invited me to your cottage in the woods, and one day I decided to take you up on that offer, so I walked out to your home where you told me it was. But just as I was about to enter, I saw a carving above the lintel that said, 'Be bold, be bold.'" And Mr. Fox said, "Well, Lady Mary, that does indeed sound like my house. I'm very surprised that you would know of it, having never been there before." And she said, "Yes, that is the way it was in my dream. And then I entered that house, which was so richly furnished and beautiful. I would have dearly loved to live in a house like that. And then I noticed a carving above the stairs that said, 'Be bold, but not too bold.'" And Mr. Fox, who was beginning to get a little nervous, said, "Well, it was just a dream. Surely it was not so, and it is not so." "Yes, but that's the way it was in my dream, Mr. Fox." And then I went upstairs, and I found a black door. And inside I saw 3 tubs, and one was filled with human bones, and one with human blood, and the third with human hair and skin, and above that door it had said, be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart's blood should run cold. And Mr. Fox, who was getting very nervous now, was wringing his hands beneath the table, saying, well, yes, but it was just a dream. I mean, surely it was not so, and it is not so. Ah, but that's the way it was in my dream, Mr. Fox. And then as I was running from this dream that had now become a nightmare, who do I see but you, Mr. Fox, dragging some poor young lady by the hair. And you dragged her into that house and up those stairs, and she was struggling so she grabbed the banister, and you turned and hacked her hand off at the wrist. And Mr. Fox, who was now almost in a frenzy, leapt to his feet, shouting out, but surely it was not so, and it is not so, and God forbid it should ever be so. And Mary just calmly reached into her apron and pulled out that hand and set it on the table before Mr. Fox and spoke to him. Mr. Fox, it was so, and it is so, and here's the very hand to show. And her two brothers took Mr. Fox out back, and they killed him. But I shan't tell you how, lest that your heart's blood should run cold. Mr. Fox